All right, for our next segment, it feels kind of like that movie we were talking about, The Wrong Missy, where I've got two ex-radio wives in the same show.
And we both still like you. What about that?
I know. From CNN, Holly Firfer. Hello, Holly.
Hello. It's so good to be back with you guys. I feel like I'm going home.
And you've never met Cubby, right?
No. Hi, Cubby.
Hi, nice to meet you. I've heard great things about you, Holly.
It's all lies.
Holly's incredible. Holly is incredible.
First, sadly, I've heard that CNN is shutting down the airport network.
I know. Can you believe it? I will tell you, I've had my dream job for the last, 15, 17 years doing travel and food stories all over the world. So, they say all good things must come to an end. But, people consume, news and entertainment differently. Before, in the early 90s when we started, all you had were screens on TV. So you watched the first Gulf War, you watched the Waco thing. I mean, everything you watched. Now everybody is nose first into these, right? And then COVID didn't help. Nobody's traveling. There's no eyes on it. And it's a tough business. It's sort of one of those went with technology, but it's sad. But I had the best job. I can't complain. I was so lucky.
So you're available now.
I am. Anybody want to hire me? I'm out there. Please. I need a job.
She can do anything, people. She can do anything.
You can work on your husband's podcast.
I know, right? He's never had me on.
I was just going to ask why his podcast is called TMI Pod with Sean Arnold.
Yes.
And I keep asking him, why has Firfer not been on your show?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he's afraid we'd be
man.
divorced. I'm not really sure, but I know. Well, now that I've got time on my hands, I may bother him and be like, can you put me on your podcast?
Well, I don't know if you know, but we had a conversation about this, and he feels weird because it is his wife. And I said, well, there is a great solution. I will come in kind of psychiatrist-like, and I will host that episode between you two, like a referee or an umpire.
Okay, let's do it. I'm going to hold you to that.
We wanted to talk travel with you because there's some weirdness going on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of changes coming. We see the vaccine and we think, oh my gosh, I see the finish line. But there's a long stretch from here until there, and it especially is affecting travel, especially, that new variant they found in the UK. It's here in the US and everywhere. So the US has been, trying to lock it down as much as they can when it comes to bringing other variants, because, that's what viruses do. They change to stay alive. They morph, and we don't want that in here. So things are changing.
Holly, with all this international travel, what does this mean for us here in the US and in our situation?
It means a lot of things are changing, and you just have to know before you go. I know it sounds weird, but that's the easiest way to put it. So, for instance, as of December 28th, right, when they found that variant in the UK, as of the 28th of December, you had to get a COVID test no more than 3 days before your arrival to the U.S. and show it in order to come to the U.S. That's not just for people from the UK. It's even for people who go to the UK on vacation. You want to go to London and have some, great beer at a pub and some bangers and mash. No. Before you come home, you've got to show you have a negative COVID test.
How can you do that in 3 days?
Well, that's the catch. So you have to know where to get a test. It's within 3 days. And if they're delayed and you don't get your results back, that could affect your return flight, right? Because you can't come back. They're not going to, and some airlines won't even let you on the flight without showing it because they don't want to get you all the way over there only to have to fly you back.
Costa Rica had a good idea because we were just there and we had to buy insurance.
Yeah.
Last week we were there. We had to buy this insurance for $10 a day. So if you got COVID while you were in Costa Rica, you get to stay at the Four Seasons for another 10 days. And I'm like, okay, someone COVID'd me.
Hello.
Because, right. So then you're like, oh, well, if I'm going to quarantine at the Four Seasons in Paradise, but no joking aside, that's a smart play by Costa Rica, because what happens if you're in some small island somewhere and you get COVID and then your hotel maybe is full? What are you going to do?
Exactly. And that's what it's happening to a lot of people. You want to go overseas and, what if you do get it and you're in Hungary or, you know what I mean? Or you're in Germany or you're in somewhere in Asia, you're going to get stuck there. And here's the other thing too. So as of January 26th, anybody coming from anywhere outside the U.S. has to do that 3-day test. So it's not just the UK. Right now, it's still the UK. But so if you have planning a trip, say you said, well, I've got COVID. I feel like I have antibodies. I'm going to fly somewhere. Hey, that's great. But does everybody in your group have it? Have you gotten the vaccine? Because you're going to need that no matter where you're coming from, Costa Rica, Jamaica, wherever. So
now, is it stricter in some countries? I mean, we're talking about the UK, but what about everywhere else?
To come from anywhere else, that's the rules.
Same thing.
Every country has their own rules. Like Italy's theirs were a lot stricter because that's, they had a really rough time with it in the beginning and they saw a big increase. So the easiest thing is wherever you're going, go to the State Department website and they'll give you all the information on what's happening in that country, what you need. Do you need a test? Things like that. And, it's not just internationally, the U.S. also, each state, because there's no federal mandate on this, on travel, each state, if you're flying from state to state, has restrictions now, too.
So what happens if you've already had COVID and you want to travel? What do you have to bring with you? How do you prove it?
So basically negative tests, right? So if you're flying, so there's 22 states right now that have different regulations that aren't just like, hey, land, get your rental car and go. Like, for instance, Alaska. Let's say Alaska, because they're so small up there and they're fairly insulated. They said you have to have a test and you have to have a negative test within 72 hours. And if you don't, you can still fly to Alaska, but before they'll let you leave the airport, you have to take a test there and then quarantine somewhere for, I guess, I think it's like 5 to 7 days or until your test comes back, but it's going to cost you $250 for them to process the test.
But tell me if you heard this. I heard that if you have had COVID before, that you can bring your positive test and then you bring a letter from a doctor that says you're okay to travel.
Yes, that can happen because
Who's going to do all this?
Well, it's hard.
They want to make it difficult, it sounds like.
Well, I think what they're worried about, because some people, what they're finding, and nobody really knows, it's a novel virus, right? So nobody knows. I did medical news way back, so I'm fascinated by the epidemiology behind it. Nobody really knows, how long these antibodies are lasting, because some people who have antibodies, my former boss had it in March. She still has antibodies because she gives blood and they test it. But then, you hear people who go after 3 months and they're like, there's no detected antibodies. Now, that doesn't mean you're not protected, because you can get into the science of T cells and B cells and where it's stored, sort of the map is stored. But, they just don't know. So even though you've had it, you don't know whether you still have the antibodies. And now they're saying you could potentially give it to somebody, but I don't know how much they haven't studied enough. How much viral load do you have to have in order to give it to someone, even if you've had COVID, before your body attacks it? So there's just a lot. I think people are, erring on the side of caution.
Now, with all the vaccines that are rolling out, and there's several, and obviously they're slow to come, where do you see travel happening in the next 6 months to a year?
I think when everybody gets vaccinated, it'll pick up. What I get the sense is so many people, and I'm sure you guys know it too, you're like, get me out of my house, get me out of my office, get me out of my bedroom, get me out of the backyard. Like, I'm tired of going to Puerto La Backyard to Cabo Couch. I'm done. So I think a lot of people are looking forward to it. And the airlines and everyone in the hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, they're like, we need to get back up to normal. So they're going to be offering incredible deals, I can imagine. I mean, I had COVID in December. I just booked a flight to Miami. It's $83 round trip.
Yeah.
So hopefully people will just say, you know what, I'm done being at home. Let's get on a plane and go. I'm vaccinated. I'm good.
I saw a list of hotels. When I started searching this, I learned about it while I was in Costa Rica, and I thought the date was going to be really fast. I'm like, oh, hell, what are we supposed to do? A lot of hotels have been proactive, and they've already got testing centers set up at the hotels, and those are smart hotels. And they're allowing these antigen tests and not only the PCR test. So that is much more doable. It's like a 30-minute turnaround.
Yeah.
So if they set up a little station at the hotel, those are the hotels that are going to get the business fast. I would go in a minute.
Absolutely.
To have that ability? Yeah, just to go in, they just prick your finger, take the blood or however they do it, and then...
They tell you, go have a cocktail at the bar. We'll get back to you in a minute.
And they put the stick in your cocktail, and they just swish it around. If it comes up blue...
There you go.
You can go home.
I'm in. I'm going.
Was there anything else that we should know about the travel restrictions? Because that's a pretty big one. Like Cubby said, it's like they're making it so hard that you don't want to travel.
Right. And I understand why they're doing it, because look, I mean, they're expecting 400,000 more deaths this month, or something crazy. And it's just, so I get it. We're trying to get it under control, and the vaccine rollout is great, but it's slow and it's arduous because of the vaccine. So the one thing also, too, I would recommend is also check with airlines because the airlines' recommendations are changing, or what the requirements, I should say, are changing all the time. Every airline, every North American airline is requiring masks, right? And some people are traveling with visors. That's fine, but you still need a mask, right?
Yeah.
And they're all doing different things. Like Delta, until March, I think it's end of March, is keeping the middle seats open, where American is not, Southwest is not, United is not. So just know. But like things like American, they say, well, if you go online and you're like, this flight is booked and there's too many people, I'm uncomfortable, they'll let you change to another flight with no change fees and things like that. So, also check and see if their requirements are changing, and know that when you get on a plane, you're not going to get food unless, some of them are giving you little snack packs that are
We
sealed.
talked about that.
Right. But like, you're not going to get food. You're not going to get alcohol unless you're certain miles or hours. Everyone has their own thing. So, you might know, oh, I'm going on this airline. I need to eat first before I get on. And also too, that helps. Don't take your mask off. That's just another precaution, because people take it off to eat and drink. Maybe not.
Do your research, people.
Yeah, thank you for getting us up to date on all of this.
Yeah.
I knew to go to the expert, you go to Holly Firfer, CNN Airport Channel.
The Airport Network until March 31st. Yeah. And then I'm a free agent. Like, somebody wants to fly me somewhere, come on, let's go.
Yeah, all right. Good to see you, Firfer.
Much.
And kudos to you for having the best set of any guest. You've got flowers, roses, good lighting. What do you expect from a CNN anchor, of
this
course?
Ain't my first rodeo.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.